Okay, we have a very special guest today, Dr. Randall Maurice Jelks, which we have been friends now for over a decade.
Yes.
Time flies, right?
Yep. When you're having fun.
Yes, well, we're having fun, and we always have fun. Will you do the honor of introducing yourself and letting them know who we have in the building today?
So I'm Randall Maurice Jelks. I am a professor at Indiana University in the Department of African American and African Diaspora Studies. And I have been teaching longer than I like to tell people.
That's an honor, though.
Yeah, yes. I started teaching at now Calvin University back in 1992, wow. And have been from Calvin to the University of Kansas, now to Indiana University. I'm the author of 4 books, the 5th coming out on April 7th.
I'm proud of you.
I always center my research at thinking about communities and people and their lived interactions in communities and so forth.
I wanted to tell you that you've actually continued a pattern that I've noticed in my life, that the first environment that I felt truly accepted for the way that I think and the way that I express my thoughts through writing and speech is higher education. And I want to say that that's like almost 100% because of professors.
Yes.
And I felt like they could see my value. They could see who I was, not just what I was, which was rare for me.
Right.
And the thing about us is that we didn't meet in the classroom. I didn't have you for a professor. I met you through your wonderful children,
right.
Jonathan and Johanna. But we have a similar rapport
sure.
as
right.
My professor. So I just wanted to mention that and that I appreciate that.
Well, you have a real intellectual brain.
You could see that. You know, some people can't see that,
yeah,
Dr. Jelks.
Right. I wanted to share why I wrote
I would
my new
love
book.
for you to share that.
So when I was a college student, I had an independent study that I didn't do very well on. I think I got a C plus or something like that. Oh, I was a goofy student. About Langston Hughes. And I was overwhelmed because he had done so much. Mm-hmm. So where do I begin this? And my professor didn't know how to actually guide me because he didn't know much about Langston Hughes.
Okay.
So, but I wanted to write because I was introduced to Langston Hughes by my 7th grade English teacher, and she thought that she wanted us to learn of a black poet then, and he made me laugh because he had a funny sense of humor, and so I picked up. I think it was he had it in the jazz meter, and it's called Motto. I play it cool. I dig all jive. That's the reason I stay alive. As I live and learn. Oh, I forgot. Oh, Miss Francis will beat me in the head.
Sorry, Miss Francis.
But dig and be dug in return is the last line.
Dig and be dug in return. I love
right?
that.
Because you want to experience all kinds of people, and it's in a jazz kind of bebop meter, and I really love that. And she thought, and in this day, I had teachers who wanted you to stand up in front of the class and say a poem. And whether it was Shakespeare or whether it was Langston Hughes, you had to get up in Miss Francis' class, and I hated it. Or you had to read a soliloquy from a memorized part of soliloquy from Romeo and Juliet with one of your girl classmates. And
are you serious?
A 7th grade boy is so embarrassing, like, oh my God. But the stuff stuck in my head because you had to practice with your partner.
Well, and it pushes you to present and get out of your discomfort, hopefully.
Right. Oh, you're goofy. You're like, girls at 7th grade are kind of maturing young women, and we're still swinging our arms like, oh, duh.
I would have loved to see that. I wish there was footage of you from that. You have to send me pictures of you in 7th grade so I can imagine this better.
Oh yeah, I'm a short kid, and they're like, oh man. But it worked. I mean, because we learned, and we learned to start thinking about these kinds of issues of literature and culture and so forth, and that's important. And so when I got to college. And when I was in high school, I would read Hughes' poem because it was big in my day to read poetry. Growing up, lots of kids read poetry, and
We need to bring that back.
Yeah, it read poetry because the world. I mean, what is Iran known for? Persian literature is the poet's world, and so lots of people have poetry. We just don't know it because we don't speak the languages, but poetry is everywhere.
Poetry is very important in Vietnamese culture.
And it's a critique too. And the poets are, as Plato would say, the first people to go down are the poets, because the kings hate that they place these ironies on their work and so forth. Poets,
playwright. Because I feel like hip hop is a form of poetry that also pushes
that's right.
against kind of the dominant culture.
Yeah, I wish it would.
I don't want to call it dominant culture. I need to call it something else.
But I mean the culture and political power.
Yes. Yeah. There we go.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. So I love that you had a connection to Langston Hughes even as a child.
Yes.
So that makes your book even more, to me, special because of that.
So Hughes was born in 1901, and he was born in Kansas. I mean, in Joplin, Missouri, but moved to, his family lived in Kansas. And it's important to think about that there are other people who are thinking about the world around us. And Hughes, amazingly, as a young person, he quit Columbia University. After his first year, he hated it. Got on a boat, dumped all his books. He said, all the stuff I learned, I'm dumping it in the water.
I love that.
And he kept one book, and that was by Walt Whitman, who was the famous 19th century American poet. And then he sailed. So he went down down the coast of Africa. He went to Europe, and this wanderlust as a young writer. And then he got a poem published in a magazine called the Crisis Magazine, famous poem called "The Negro Speaks of Rivers," and in the Crisis Magazine under the editorship of W.E.B. Du Bois, and he's 19 years old, and people are saying this is a poem from a much older person, but it's a 19-year-old, and they discover him. But Hughes didn't want to be with the in crowd. He was always interested in what working class life and what working class. Although he comes from his family's background, it's quite historical. So that's what I wanted to do. And I'm still trying to make a movie about Langston.
Yes, what's the status on that?
Oh, it's hard because when you go to pitch to Hollywood, people ask you questions like, could you say Langston's the godfather of hip hop? Yeah, I could tell that story, but I really want to tell about somebody in search of their own individual freedom as well as a kind of global freedom. And because he always wrote his poetry in simple English and clear English and direct, it's translated into all kinds of languages, and people still use the world over.
That's interesting that you say that, because I find in interviews, people try to force you into a storyline that they already have for you, that they think is more sensational and interesting, but a lot of times the real story is better.
Yeah, no, I mean, but he wrote his story. I mean, he had 2 memoirs. I mean, he traveled to Russia and across Russia in the 30s when the communists had taken over, to Central Asia, all the way to
He's adventurous.
Yeah, he was.
I love that.
And he took his records with him in his what was it called, the gramophone, whatever the thing is called.
That's amazing.
And his album, and what he has this wonderful line in Central Asia. He's trying to communicate with somebody, and he puts on Louis Armstrong, and they don't know what Armstrong is saying.
But
they know that the timbre and the timbre of the voice and so forth.
You don't forget Hollywood, Dr. Jelks. We're gonna make this documentary, and we're gonna make it how it's supposed to be, without those confines.
Right. Well, so no, not just a Hollywood, but I mean, so when you seek out support for a major documentary, you're asking lots of people for money, and they're saying, "Well, how is this going to pay back?" Half the movies,
it's understandable.
Yeah, half the movies in Hollywood never pay back. So 2/3 of them. But when it comes to somebody who is this African American great artist. He tried to be a professional writer. He starred, but he was also an activist. So what I mean, he's protesting against. There's a famous case of 13 young men. It sort of sounds like Central Park 5, called the Scottsboro case. And these young men are on hoboing on a train. Two young white women get on the train. They're hoboing too, because kids during the Great Depression hoboed across the country looking for work.
Oh wow, I did not know
Yeah,
that.
all across the country. They rode the trains, and the young women are selling sex, but not to the black boys. The black boys want nothing to do, because if they're accused of touching a
Too
white
much of a risk.
yes, right, and they get in a fight with a group of white boys, and they kick them off the train. They literally, and they report to the sheriff that these boys have raped these young women. So they are held in Scottsboro, Alabama, in jail. It becomes a famous case in the 1930s, and Hughes couldn't figure out what to do. He puts a wonderful book, because he always collaborated with artists, a wonderful book together with poems in it, in a play about the Scottsboro. But he not only does
Is it
that.
still available?
You can find it on, if you find it for like $10,000.
Oh, it's a
But
rare.
yeah, right. But because he collaborated with all kinds of artists. I mean, and the other thing, he spoke Spanish because he lived in Mexico with
What
his
a
father.
wonderful human
Yeah,
being. I
yeah.
did not know this all about him.
Yeah, yeah. That's in that. So after having done all this research for a documentary, and failing to get the kind of funding that I wanted, I said, well, you know what I'm going to do? Langston speaks to this time because he was always worried about fascism. He was a young sailor in Italy, and he saw what was coming in Mussolini's era, and so with fascism running through Europe, and so he wanted to write about that. He goes to cover, as a journalist, the Spanish-American War. I mean, not Spanish-American, the Spanish Civil War, and try to just, for regular people, what is this about? Why are people fighting and so forth? So he was an amazing character.
He's amazing.
And the other thing about his own individual freedom, he kept very private. He was the gay black man, queer.
I did not know this
Yeah,
about.
so all of the factors in his life that are going on and so forth.
I think he made a great move throwing those books in the water.
Right.
And skipping
He did
school,
go back to
learning from the
school.
school of life, though.
Right, but
learned-
he did go back to college.
Okay.
He decided not to go to like Columbia or an Ivy League college. He went to a small all-men's college called Lincoln University. It's now co-ed in Pennsylvania. Started in the 1840s for black men who were going to go to seminary, and became a college. He went to school with like Thurgood Marshall,
Okay.
the first sitting president, independence of Nigeria. They were all in school together. So
Oh, wow.
so
What
he's
a
good.
time.
Well, no, I mean he had such an adventuresome life. Yeah.
What are the most important lessons you think from Langston Hughes' work and life that you would like to?
Well, the first thing is that when the whole society was describing black life as negative, he saw the wonder and the joy. And these are working people. Langston very much saw the joy of ordinary working people. His poetry was about that, about their struggle for freedoms. The other thing is, he saw the joy of other people's life. He wrote tons of children's books. His first book with one of his writing partners was on Haiti. He had spent time in Haiti, and in the 1930s, just after U.S. occupation, and he wrote about children in Haiti. And he wrote the first book of jazz for children.
Oh, wow.
So he was writing all kinds of stuff. And he just kept writing, and he translated, because he spoke Spanish, he read Spanish, and he translated Jacques Romain, a Haitian writer in French. He was linguistically fluid, so it was great. So he became my hero. Like, I want to go all over the world. And that's part of the impetus when I was talking about going to Ghana, going to this place, that place, because Hughes influenced that sort of wanderlust in me.
You need to make this. You are the person to make this documentary.
Oh, well,
100%.
Thank you for saying
I'm gonna
that.
get rich and give you the funding. Cut that all out. But you talk about the spirit of optimism, which is really important because today I don't see that as much in the activism world.
You have to have a balance, right? You
Yes.
should be angry at injustice.
Yes.
We all should.
Yes.
No matter who it happens to. Injustice is just simply wrong. But you also have to find community.
Yes.
And find a community to keep you mentally intact, because the attacks on you are dispiriting, and they do take away from your humanities. And that's the one thing that you saw, is how at a time when African Americans were under full-scale attack, from Scottsboro to lynchings to other things, they managed to keep community intact, joy and laughter, because that's going to help you in the fight. You can't make the battle without joy and laughter, and you have to have your friends you go out with, and that you could just say the most foolish things. Okay,
let's do that part. Let's get foolish now, because it's important.
And allow you to decompress without judgment, without
A safe place to do that.
Right.
Yes. Yeah, and I've actually found that on the internet.
Yeah.
The digital world is actually amazing for that these days. You can
Wow.
really find your people.
Well,
Yeah.
see, there you can find your people everywhere.
Yes.
But it's also nice to find your people live.
In person. But I feel like we actually connected more through content too.
Yeah.
Seeing each other's work.
Right.
We knew each other,
Yeah.
but it allowed us to know each other a little bit more
Right.
intimately, which then translates to,
Right.
in-person
Right.
meetings
Right.
and stuff too.
Right.
So
And I kept saying, I saw some of the material that you made, dresses and other things. And I was like, this is a real talented person. Oh, that's Ashley, Dad. Okay.
well, I taught myself how to do all that
I
too. It was
know.
just trial and error.
But-
I was like Langston Hughes. I'm like, throw all that. Let me just get to it.
Well, and because the system might take away your
My
freedom.
special thing.
Thing,
It
right.
makes it cookie cutter.
Right.
They teach you this is the only way to
What
do
to
it.
do
This
it.
is the right, which makes it streamline everything. It
That's
makes it all
right.
the same.
Right.
It like pushes you into a conformity that I think true artists just don't fit into.
Right.
And we have that gift, and I think separating from that allows us to be a vessel to do that more so.
I wrote about a musician. And you'll look her up. Jazz musician. Her name is Mary Lou Williams.
Mary Lou Williams.
And Mary Lou, when she was a kid, her mother didn't let her have piano lessons. She was already a prodigy. Her mother said, "No, if you let her have piano lessons, they're going to make her in the way." So the way she heard music, she eventually learned music and theory and all that stuff like that. But the way the kind of system of teaching this little black girl from Pittsburgh how to play the piano,
It's taking away her magic to an extent.
Right,
Yes.
that's right. And so eventually she learned how to, and she shepherded a lot of what we know as some of the great American musicians today.
I'm going to look her up.
Yeah, yeah.
I would love to feature
Yeah,
her.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
And it's not just this month, it's all year round.
Yeah. Well, yeah, but I appreciate it because this is a unique opportunity. I mean, I know a little bit about your parents' journey and your journey, and it's rare that I get to talk to someone who's not African American about Black history. Negro History Week started in 1926.
1926.
Yeah, and it was primarily because in the United States, both in the academic world and Black people were, like all other groups, were excluded from the history. History was told that from a kind of Anglo American point of view. It began with the Pilgrims and it went west.
Yep.
But it was a much more complicated history. People from anywhere from 11 million to 14 million people from various parts of the African continent. It was excluded. Our organization started in 1915 with the film Birth of a Nation, which was with the Ku Klux Klan riding to the rescue of the distressed South, and called the Association for the Study of Negro Life and History in Chicago, and it went further than that. And then by the 20s, it's just like we really need a pedagogy to teach children. We need materials for children to think about, because if you're constantly excluded, if you don't see yourself as a woman, as a Vietnamese person, as children of whatever immigrants you came, we're all kinds of immigrants, then you don't believe you exist, and you don't believe you have any other purpose but to being servants to a dominant society.
Yes. Would you say that being in education for the length of time that you have you seen that improve?
Oh, I have seen it improve, and partly why we in our society we see this backlash is because it's improved. I was the other day just marveled at Bad Bunny portrayal of from sugarcane to other things of at the Super Bowl, and so yeah, it has improved, but there's a backlash because it also has put in perspective what we think about what we mean by Europe, what we mean by Britishness. All of those things have now been put in a more a greater context.
Well, the standard has been skewed for a long time, so now that we're trying to adjust for that, there's going to be
500 years of standard being skewed. Yeah.
Yes.
But what makes up the Americas are all of us. So where I come from, where I was born, in my village, I call it New Orleans. So there's a large Vietnamese community in New Orleans.
You told me that.
And so, walking down the street one day, I was listening to these people. I was like, oh, this must be African Americans behind me. It's Vietnamese, or the way food has been really creatively mixed. To use the metaphor, this is the gumbo of our society.
Last time we spoke, you talked about how you got familiar with the Hmong community.
Yeah.
Which, if people don't know what that is, that's an ethnic tribe from Southeast and East Asia. And you said you noticed parallels between the men in your community, some of the issues in the Hmong community.
Yeah, I mean, Hmong, particularly around, unfortunately, Minnesota, Minneapolis area.
Bigger community there.
Bigger communities have economic problems. From Hmong were primarily agrarian people, right? I mean, so then suddenly you're put in a city, and you've got all kinds of problems of jobs, of labor, then well, how do you make your money? Why I was interested in thinking about Hmongs is because much like if you'd have came to Grand Rapids in 1950, you'd have saw people coming off the farm and how to adjust to life in the city, but also honor is a great thing in farming communities. And so among men, honor is a big deal. So so all of those things are parallel, and people are live their lives pretty much the same, all of them. During my travels.
I think you mentioned that some of the Hmong students seemed a little bit more isolated, and they had some maybe like. Did you speak to some anger issues and things like that too?
Well, of course, but I mean, anytime you're moved, anytime, in their case, by warfare, you have a lot of issues.
Yes.
I mean,
Trust me, I know that very well. I live that.
That's right. The traumas of that, and the angers of that, and that gets passed internally in families.
Yes.
So yeah, all of those things are part of it. I mean, anytime anybody's been in a refugee camp, that's not a pleasant place.
No.
And I've been to refugee camps, and so there's a lot of traumatic anger, frustration. The society is not working the way it's supposed to, in theory. And so trying to figure that out, and then going to a new place that maybe it's not.
It's very different from...
And not warm in terms of physically warm.
That makes a huge difference.
Right, that's great. So
not a lot of sun,
that's right. All of those things factor into life, so forth.
Did you say you had a program too at Calvin? Are you
Well, when
supposed
I
to-
was at Calvin, I ran a program to West Africa.
Okay.
I began a program to West Africa in 1998, and we really kicked it off on the ground 2001. It started an entire semester program in Ghana.
Okay.
So to take students to
Take students there.
take students to Ghana. I wanted them, particularly in the case of Calvin, I wanted the professors to be Ghanaian. They were often looking at people who are a reflection of them, and I wanted them to see
Yes.
other reflection, learning some language skills, and all of those things came along with that. So it was a fun time. It was I think a growth time for my students at Calvin and the faculty, because they had to also learn from
That's
other people.
that's very important
Right.
actually as educators.
More
Yes.
important that the faculty learn.
What would you say are some of the important lessons, or in which ways do you think that program opened people's minds?
Well, for many of my students, the kind of international programs that Calvin ran then, along with that, really opened their minds to that there are greater parts of the world, that we are by ourselves not the only people to do things. There are
Yes.
inventive people all over the world. So that was very important, because in Calvin, their philosophy, their theology was partly being apart. That we're
Okay.
this group by itself, and that's not how the world works.
No, not at all. That's really powerful
Yeah.
that you did that then,
Yeah.
especially there
Yeah,
and at
yeah.
that time.
Yeah, well, you know,
You're a legend, Dr. Jelks, is what I'm having.
I don't know if I'm a legend, but what I was trying to do is also have minority students going on that program. What was considered minority at Calvin, African Americans. We had some Japanese Americans on that program. We had a lot of different kinds of people on the program, so that they could go and see something for themselves. But you know what the television camera does is, this country is poor and it's in warfare, but it only showed a
Oh,
neighborhood.
yes.
Yeah.
I actually, being from West Michigan, I did not have an Asian educator or even like an authority figure outside of family in front of me until I went to higher education.
Right.
And then sometimes, typically they weren't Southeast Asian, and there's a little bit of difference with
Yeah, it
that.
is.
So I still didn't feel like
That's
it was
culturally
relatable.
different, right.
It was culturally different for me. And then I noticed actually that some of the students in classrooms where the professors were not from West Michigan and were not who people were used to seeing in front of them, they challenged them a lot. I was defending my professors a lot, especially I had a professor that I forget, I think he was Jamaican. But he came to class, he wasn't dressed up in a blazer. He would wear Bob Marley t-shirts and he had locks. And people were so disrespectful to him because they were not used to someone like
Right.
that educating them.
Yeah.
They were very resistant to it.
Oh, of course. I experienced that too when I started teaching at Calvin. But I'll tell you a funny story. I was walking from my office to the bathroom before class, and on Fridays, Calvin would have these parents visit. And the parents asked me as I was walking, "Do you know where Dr. Jelks' classroom is?" I said, "Oh, it's right over there, and I'm sure he'll be there shortly." And I went to the bathroom, washed my hands, got my jacket, because I used to wear a jacket then, and came back with my notes to class.
I love that. That must have felt so good in a sense.
It felt so funny, but they also couldn't imagine that I might be a professor. And students still to this day, even at big universities, they're like, "Oh, you're the professor?" Because I'm sometimes the first person of any ethnicity and color that they see,
Even still today.
even still today.
Okay, so you recently shared with me your Substack, and I
Yes.
was not aware you were on there.
Oh yeah.
Yes, and so you've published books, and now you're doing a more digital type of thing. What
Yeah.
is like some of the differences?
Well,
or-
you won't know this, but when I came to Grand Rapids, I also used to write upsetting things in the Grand Rapids press.
love that.
To
I love
people in the community. But they were my viewpoints,
They're your
right?
viewpoints,
And
yes.
I was lucky enough, the editor, then Mike Lloyd, let me give him all credit, allowed me to publish a lot of articles, letters to the editor, publishing oppositional ideas. People frame their ideas as though those are the only one. And so I would write about this and write back to people who disagreed with me.
What a fun job.
Yeah, well, I wasn't getting paid for it though.
Oh, okay.
But I thought it's very important when people put something in words, you need to respond in words, and you need to respond back. And the editor then allow for the discourse. But one of the goals when I started to pursue an academic career was not just to talk in a specialized language, but be able to talk to people about the things that they might want to consider. Ethical consideration was my big thing, that there are other sides, there are other stories. When we write about relationships, there are multiple sides of a relationship.
Yes.
And people, oh, I'm going to take this person's side of that. Well, there are complications of all relationships. And that's just life. And histories are told by the military victors often time, or the colonial or the imperial power. But there were other sides, and people consistently, or groups consistently resisted, and we put these big labels on people like, well, Africans sold Africans into slavery. They didn't think of themselves as that.
You're talking about such a large group of people.
They didn't
Yes.
think about themselves as being Africans. They thought of themselves as being nations like other nations, and those were my enemies, and so I'm going to do that. There were consequences of that, but it's like in the Great Lakes area, Iroquois is not a fond word for many indigenous people. The Iroquois, who are a very aggressive military force.
I did not know that.
Yeah, and so that we often wanted to say, oh, Native Americans, as though they are all one people. But then we want to say, oh, but there were Normans and there were this in Europe and that, and as though
But
they
that's
did.
very intentional.
Right.
I
And
like
just
that.
like you said about Asia, people don't think of China as multicultural. I do. I mean, China has regions all over the place that are quite different than each other.
There's a lot of distinction. I feel like people tend to generalize
Yeah.
and not really have
Right.
room for nuance.
Right. Well,
Which is very important.
Education and travel. Americans travel least. I mean, they go to.
Oh, really?
Yeah, they go to hotels or they go to all-inclusive resorts, but that's not really going out and trying to understand the kind of diversity of people in a country.
I think they're made to fear that, though, a little bit. So
Yeah.
it's like, let me go out of the country, but still do something that's westernized so I still feel comfortable.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
And I like how you mentioned that you think it's important to speak in a way that the general public can understand you
Right,
too.
right.
Because that was one of my critiques about academia. It's like we do all this wonderful research. Why? To impact the world, to give people, kind of a snapshot of how things are looking at the time so that we can have some thought to how we solve this. And that
Yeah.
needs to go out to the general public. But a lot of times we keep that in that world.
Oh yeah. Well, we have these specialized words that we use, and I often
And
tell
I
them,
like using them, but there's a time and place.
No, they're really important words but I ask my students, so how would you put that theoretical perspective in your own words?
That's beautiful. I love that.
yeah.
That's a great question to pose. You said you wrote in the Grand Rapids
Press,
Press.
when it was still a newspaper around, really a regular.
What year did that?
Well, I from the late '80s, the early '90s, till about 2000, till I left. I was often in the paper and in trouble for something.
I love that. You were pushing the boundaries. You were pushing
Well,
the status quo here.
Yeah. Well, I mean, because people don't think about their existence as being a part of a whole. We're all just a part of a whole.
Well, and that's very important to share your standpoint and your opinion on things, being that you had a different perspective as a lot of people that were probably writing in that journal and reading that journal as well. And that was one of my things in research, because I love research and have a research background. I noticed there was not enough diversity. So the hypotheses that people were testing were coming from one perspective mainly.
Yeah.
And it's important for people that have a different experience to be able to test their ideas on
Right.
what-
This is the why in the United States we had ethnic newspapers at one time, a whole slew of them, all over the place, whether they were written in German, whether they were written by African Americans, whether they were written in Spanish. There were to identify the questions on the news, the questions of the news in a different way, in a different angle, right?
That's very important. Speaking of Grand Rapids, I think that Grand Rapids is a little bit behind, and I'm putting that nicely.
Yeah.
What is your perspective on that? What are the changes that you would like to see for the city?
So you have to understand the history of the city. I mean, the city really got started 1850. And if you put it in a bigger context, after Indian removal, this is U.S. history, right? To make the U.S., indigenous people were forced to the West, what they call Oklahoma, Indian country.
Okay.
And people know it as a Trail of Tears. Now, indigenous people were powerful nations, and one of the things that they did was they held slaves. So the
indigenous communities held slaves.
Yes, the Choctaw, Cherokee, other people, and when they were pushed west, they could take their slaves with them. So they went to what is now Oklahoma, parts of Kansas, and so forth. Not all indigenous people, but if you look up what is called the 5 civilized tribes, and why they were civilized is they were becoming Christian and they owned slaves. But they were also proving to be a threat to the kind of dominant European narrative of America being British, German, Anglo, and as such. This becomes the ability to take lands in Georgia, Alabama, Mississippi, parts of Louisiana, to then grow cotton and bring more enslaved people in from the north. So that's kind of the history of the United States. Grand Rapids, then, the state of Michigan's properly designated date of formation, 1837. So
how do you remember all of this? I'm
well,
so impressed.
So 13 years later, the city of Grand Rapids is formed.
Okay.
Half the people we call Potawatomi are moved to Kansas. The other half sues the United States and wins the case and can remain in Michigan. And so this is like I said, there are many histories within the United States, but the way history has been told is that these good people from England came over. They weren't hustling. They weren't criminals. That's
what they taught us as children.
That's right. But they were much more complex than, and they were unequal class status and all of these people. So that's the importance of learning history, is that not that you can change it, but that that how to think about decision making for the future. What's the ramification of this decision we make now for the long term? And that's what in our politics today people want to stop you from thinking about.
Yes, and it's our context.
Yeah.
And a lot of things repeat itself.
Yeah.
So it's not to stay stuck there, but it's to know when the same play is being done.
Right.